Chapter 69. The tears in Seraphina's eyes had not yet dried, the whole world had become blurry, but only Harrison's face was unusually clear. The strong wind made his skin pale, his short hair fluttered wildly, his youthful features were full of pride. When he ran up, he had taken off his coat, the white shirt was now fluttering in the wind on the roof, drawing out sharp edges. Today was cloudy, but the bright light still pierced her eyes, making her feel pain. His tall and resolute back seemed to be turned into an illusion by the light, somewhat unreal. Amidst the silence of heaven and earth, her tears fell. The first person to protest was Theodore. He painfully shouted, "Harrison, my business." "It's none of your business." Harrison leaned over to look at him. Even at this point his tone was still very gentle. "What I want to resolve is between my family and the Kensington family. As for Seraphina, she is your sister, and also my woman." He paused for a moment. "She is my fiancée. The responsibility of protecting her is no longer yours alone." Theodore was silenced by his rebuttal. Lily had previously said that William would definitely seek out Harrison and Seraphina to take revenge. Theodore guessed that the engagement ceremony was the best target. But he knew that with Harrison's way of thinking, he would definitely prepare very carefully. But if he knew that William could be in this city, could hurt his sister, he could not pretend to know nothing and continue to be happy. So when he was home alone, he left that recording. He had to go find David to think of a way. He knew that with David's personality, as long as he told him the truth, he would definitely not forgive William. He recorded that recording after receiving Lily's call. He was suddenly emotional and heartbroken. He didn't want these words to be his last words before dying. He also wanted to walk his sister down the wedding carpet. The only thing he didn't expect was that Vivian would come to his house, and even give his sister the MP3. The result was this chaos today. Seraphina sat on the ground, stiffly raised her head to look at Harrison, saw his deep gaze fall on her, then slowly stood up, eye to eye with him. She couldn't say a word, didn't want to say anything. These past few days she had unknowingly understood him very well. He was cold and calm, didn't like trouble, didn't like long-windedness, was always unconstrained but was very principled. However, his stubbornness and haughty heart would never change. Once he made up his mind, he wouldn't go back on his word. Why did she only understand him now? She really wanted to give him a smile, but couldn't, and he didn't wait for her, instead looking at William. "I've already sent your parents to jail, sentenced them to death. Of course you'll be stuck with my family for the rest of your life. As for me, I'll definitely chase you away for the rest of my life for the kidnapping and the car accident. If only one of us can survive, then let's end it today." In the wind, his voice was cold. "David and the others are witnesses. This gamble is a matter of life and death. No matter who dies, no one is allowed to take revenge on the living." After he finished speaking, no one spoke for a long time. Hannah understood what was going on, painfully pulled William's hand and cried, "Brother, don't agree, we swear to leave here, no more revenge is enough." "Don't agree with him." William's face darkened, not moving at all. She cried to Harrison again, "Mr. Harrison, I beg you not to bet your life with my brother, can you two not do that?" "Hannah!" William coldly shouted, "It's none of your business, don't interrupt." Hannah was stunned, sat down on the ground and cried loudly. William looked at her, his expression unclear. He didn't want to accept Harrison's conditions. But he knew, even if he escaped today, there would be many other hidden things happening. Harrison would eventually catch him. Things had come to this point, he had lost everything, and he was not afraid of death. But he was worried about his innocent sister who did not understand this, although she was safe and sound this time, but next time it would be hard to say. Thinking back to the past few days of hiding outside, and having to worry about his sister every second and minute really made him extremely suffocated. It was better to make a bet. If he won, he could kill Harrison openly and fairly, avenge his parents, and would not be retaliated against. Even if he lost, in exchange for a stable future for his sister, it was worth it. Mother always told him, no matter where he was, he had to take care of his sister, and he could not disobey her until death. He looked straight at Harrison and said, "Okay." The person next to him brought a broken table, placed it against the edge of the building, and placed 2 revolvers with 5-round magazines removed in front of the 2 people. One of the most popular civilian guns, a revolver-style pistol. According to the rules, whoever reloads the gun faster will decide who shoots first. According to probability, the person who shoots first will fire 3 shots. The probability of hitting the bullet is 3/5, while the person who shoots later will only have 2/5. But if the only bullet happens to be the 2nd or 4th shot, then David came to stand between the 2 of them. The others did not dare to breathe heavily. Dozens of pairs of eyes stared at these 2 people. Serafina stood in the wind, not crying or sad, only her legs trembled reflexively. Only at this moment did she truly begin to think about a problem she had never worried about before. If Harrison was gone, if she lost this man, what would happen to her? William was highly focused, sweat was already dripping from his temples, but Harrison still kept his calm and composed expression. David glanced at the 2 of them, calmly saying, 1, 2. Begin. As soon as he finished speaking, both of them quickly assembled their guns. The dozens of people on the rooftop did not make any movement, but there was only the sound of the cold wind blowing mixed with the sound of assembling guns. Serafina glanced at Harrison's hand, his slender fingers holding the small iron block gently and elegantly as if pressing the piano keys. That image made her even more nervous. Not daring to even glance at him, she looked at the side of his face without blinking. The cold wind made his shirt flutter. He lowered his head, his hair falling down covering his eyes. No emotion could be seen. Still the same outstanding appearance, straight nose, sharp lips. Still that attentive look, there was no other emotion on his face. Just these few seconds, to her, felt like a year. She was extremely impatient, unable to bear it. She looked at William, he frowned, quickly reloaded the gun. He had already pushed the cylinder out, preparing to load the bullets inside. Her heart tightened, suddenly looking back at Harrison, she saw him raise the gun in his hand, pointing it straight at William. Her terrified heart also suddenly slowed down. William caught the muzzle of the gun in Harrison's hand, his face pale. Finally, he saw the gun that had not yet been loaded onto the table. It slid to the edge of the table and fell down. William couldn't believe it. Impossible, until now no one has reloaded a gun faster than me. Harrison smiled, not caring. You want too many things, want to kill me, want to avenge your parents, want to save Hannah, and even want to revive your family. But I only want one thing, to protect my people. He pushed the cylinder, his index finger gently squeezed the trigger, his thumb loosened, the gun rotated in his hand. He handed the gun to William. The probability of the first shot having a bullet was 20%. William took the gun, his fingers stiff and heavy but not trembling. He slowly held the gun and brought it to his temple. Hannah stopped crying, looking at him in fear. Serafina clenched her teeth and prayed continuously, it must explode, it must explode. William pulled the trigger, his whole body trembling like a leaf. The cylinder rotated for a moment and then became quiet again. Hannah collapsed to the ground. Serafina's mind felt like someone had stabbed her with a knife. William escaped a disaster. Next was Harrison. William's expression did not change as he took a breath, pushed the gun on the table in front of Harrison. Harrison's face was indifferent. Without stopping, he held the gun and aimed it at his temple. The probability of this shot having a bullet had reached 25%. Perhaps it was this shot. Serafina finally couldn't bear it anymore and ran towards him. She decided that if the shot really rang out and he fell down, she would rush up and hug him. But Theodore hugged her tightly, one hand covering her eyes. Before her eyes were covered, she saw Harrison's finger pulling the trigger. The pain and fear from the bottom of her heart this time made her unable to cry out, her heart pounding. But in the silence, only the sound of the cylinder turning could be heard, and then there was no more sound. Serafina pulled her brother's hand down, seeing that Harrison's pistol had left his head. He threw the gun to William, and the pressure also pressed down on him. This time, William's face was even paler. Although he was slow, he still raised the gun in the end, stubbornly rolled his eyes, and pulled the trigger. Another sound of the cylinder turning and stopping. Serafina's heart dropped. Why wasn't he dead? The fear and anxiety in her heart probably had to be released by screaming. The gun was pushed in front of Harrison again, a 50% chance. This time everyone held their breath. It was this shot. Either Harrison died, or with the last remaining shot, William would definitely die. Everyone held their breath, staring at Harrison. The wind ruffled his hair, there was no light in his dark pupils, the darkness was so calm that it was frightening, but his composure and calmness made people feel strange. Serafina calmly looked at the side of his face, suddenly calmly said, "Theodore. Remember to take care of Grandma and Mom." As soon as she finished speaking, she broke free from his embrace, without turning her head, running straight to Harrison. She threw herself behind him, hugging his waist tightly, hugging him tightly as if she was hugging her life. Harrison was suddenly pushed by her like that, as if something had rushed straight into his heart. Her fair arms wrapped around his chest, her cold cheeks pressed against his back, her voice was very gentle, not afraid or panicked, but carried an unprecedented comfort and peace. As if she had found a place to return to. She said, "Harrison, let's do it together. If the gun goes off, if he falls, she will fall with him." At this moment, she gave up everything. Hatred, suffering, joy, grievances, memories of her previous life, struggles of this life, she put everything down. Today was her new life, at this moment she would start her new life, she would be with him, forever by his side, no matter where he went, they would never part. Harrison was stunned for a long time, a warm and burning feeling gradually filled his heart. Her choice at this moment made him feel that this life was finally not in vain, it was complete. He raised his hand and held her hand tightly in front of his chest, secretly laughing. She was so stupid, how could he dare to leave her behind? A smile spread across the corner of his lips, he raised the gun, under everyone's tense eyes, under William's crazy eyes of hatred and curses, he pulled the trigger. The world was completely silent, only the click sound of the rotating cylinder could be heard. For the first time, a dozen men like Miles and Ben were so scared that their legs went weak. They immediately clapped their hands and hugged each other with an unusual attitude, some were even so excited that their eyes turned red. Serafina still kept her eyes closed, hugging him tightly, quietly snuggling into his back. The complicated emotions in her heart right now were hard to describe in words, joy, luck, warmth, relaxation, in the end, she couldn't explain it clearly. Just leaning on his back like this, safe and secure, so good. The cold wind was still blowing behind her neck, she closed her eyes to listen to the wind, smiling from the bottom of her heart. His body was still warm, he was still alive, so good. With one hand, he pushed the gun along the table, with the other hand, he pulled her from behind to the front, hugging her tightly. He lowered his head and leaned close to her ear, his voice lingering as he dropped a word, "Idiot." She didn't argue with him, focusing on greedily inhaling the scent on his neck like a puppy, rubbing her face against his neck. He wavered, his lips pressed against her ear. The engagement ceremony was disrupted. "How about we get married?" She was stunned. Propose? In this situation? The two of them were currently standing amidst the strange gazes of a bunch of people, and even standing on the edge of a tall building. What a joke. But he was the man she wanted to marry. Okay. Her joyful voice flowed out of his neck. He understood the smile, and now looked at William. Unlike Harrison's lucky air of surviving the accident on this side, William's face was like a funeral. Hannah was completely scared stiff, with only one bullet left, her brother's death was beyond doubt. William's face was pale, and when he faced death, he was trembling. His right hand was shaking violently as he held the gun, but it was like holding a 1,000-pound iron block, unable to lift it. Sweat was dripping down his face. After a long moment of hesitation, he finally aimed the gun at his temple, and after a long while, he suddenly said to Harrison, "I'm dead, can you spare Lily? She followed me, consider it my fault to her." Harrison frowned, not answering. William didn't question him, but looked at David who was standing at the side with a cold face, choking. "David, Hannah has to trouble you." David nodded calmly. Hannah beside him cried silently, rushed over, grabbed him and cried out. "Brother, don't shoot, don't shoot. What should I do if you die? I don't want to be alone. Don't shoot, don't shoot." William still pressed the gun barrel tightly against his temple, not moving at all, but his lips trembled violently. Hannah panicked and ran to Harrison, tears streaming down her face. "Please spare my brother. Rules are also set by humans. My brother and I promise that we won't come looking for everyone anymore. From now on we will disappear without a trace. Please spare him, I beg you, I beg you." Everyone here was silent. Harrison was indifferent. Hannah knew she couldn't beg him. Instead she turned to hold Serafina tightly, crying her heart out, her whole body trembling. "I'm sorry, everything before was our fault. Please, tell Harrison to forgive my brother, forgive my brother." Serafina lowered her eyes, not saying a word. Hannah was completely desperate. After a while, she suddenly knelt down. Serafina was stunned. Hannah had grabbed her skirt, raised her tear-stained face, and cried and begged in the most despicable way. "I promise, I swear, we won't come to bother you, we will disappear. Serafina, I beg you, my parents are gone, if he's not here anymore, Hannah, what are you begging for?" William walked over, pulled his sister up, and shouted, "If I live, I absolutely cannot forgive." "William, shut up." Hannah screamed and slapped him in the face, pushed him away, and immediately turned around and knelt at Serafina's feet, crying, "Don't listen to him. Serafina, if you want to kill someone, can you use my life to exchange for my brother's life? My parents only have him as a son. Kill me, I will exchange my life for his. Don't kill my brother, I beg you not to kill my brother." Serafina looked at her silently, her eyes suddenly wet. For some reason, she saw herself in Hannah. In fact, their sibling love was no less than that of her and her brother. She bent down to help Hannah up, and said blandly, "Don't cry anymore." Hannah stopped crying and looked at her hopefully. She gently stroked her cheeks, but said, "Hannah, you want to protect your brother, and I also want to protect my brother. Forgiving him would put my loved ones in danger. Don't you know that feeling of worry and fear?" Hannah was speechless, filled with tears, suddenly stubborn and determined to say, "Take my life in exchange for his, Serafina, I beg you." After saying that, she was about to jump off the building. David gave an order with his eyes. His two men quickly stepped forward to drag Hannah away. He said to William, "I will help you take care of your sister." William raised his gun again, but at the last moment he was unable to pull the trigger. Father was dead, mother was dead, Lily's whereabouts were unknown. Hannah also made him worried, and his family's company collapsed overnight. Everything made him unwilling. He still wanted to wait for the right time to return. How could he be willing? And Harrison, who had killed his parents, now held a beauty in his arms, acting like an arrogant winner and looking down on everyone. The fear of facing death made him go crazy, suddenly pointing the gun at Harrison. Harrison was holding Serafina, looking up to see his movements change. He showed no signs of avoiding. On the contrary, his eyes were still calm, the corners of his lips slightly raised. This smile, as if he had grasped everything, made William's back shiver. A chill suddenly spread throughout his body. His finger had lost control of pulling the trigger. The gunshot echoed to the horizon. The sky above was dark. The gun in David's hand was still smoking, and on William's forehead there was already a bright red hole. His eyes widened, he fell backwards. Behind him was the abyss of a 30-story building. "Brother!" Hannah screamed and wanted to rush over, but was held tightly. She could only watch William disappear from the rooftop. The world returned to silence. In the moment he was hit by a bullet and fell, William finally gave up. He never expected, everyone also did not know, Harrison's gun was not loaded. David looked at Hannah, who was crying and sobbing, and said, "William lost, and broke the rules and wanted to kill Harrison with the last bullet. I am a witness, so I must shoot. Hannah, if you have any grudges or revenge, just come find me." Hannah covered her face and cried, unable to say anything. She just shook her head. Serafina heard that she had just turned her back to William, so he wanted to shoot Harrison. She thought about it and was scared, but now she could rest assured. It's over, it's finally over. After going downstairs, Theodore drove himself, so he had to drive back. Harrison and David stood aside and talked for a few sentences before getting in the car. Serafina thought back to everything that had just happened on the rooftop. as if she had just experienced a dream, and asked Harrison, "You really are, even though it was only a last resort, you still couldn't bet your life like that. You scared me to death." He hugged her, curling his lips into a smile. "You know, I've never lost at this game before. You might not believe me, but no matter how fast I spin the cylinder, I can always hear which chamber the bullet is in." She was surprised, and fearfully praised. "Is it that magical? Just like Andrew, who never loses on the gambling table. Is this Russian roulette something you win every time?" He looked at her admiring gaze, couldn't help but laugh, and pinched her cheeks. "Let's just say that." After praising, she frowned again. "But there are also accidents. If the bullet is in the previous magazines, the opponent will of course die without any preparation. But if it is like today, the bullet is in the last magazine. It is very likely that it will force the opponent to shoot back. If David did not shoot at that time, the one who died would be you." "So," he laughed, "I did not load the bullet." She was surprised. He continued, with William's unyielding arrogance, "He definitely won't commit suicide obediently. David also knows his personality, and David is a very stubborn person. If he were a witness, he definitely wouldn't let William break the rules and kill me. I trust his character and even more his shooting skills." She secretly admired him, for the first time feeling that this dark person was truly deadly charming. However, the fact that a rule-keeper like him would use such a trick really surprised her. He added another sentence to explain. "Do you know why I didn't load the bullet?" He hugged her tighter, narrowed his eyes, and said deeply, "At that moment, I understood Andrew's mood in the casino in Macau. Although there was a 100% chance of winning, I was still afraid of the unexpected. No matter how competent I was, I had to worry about the unexpected. What if something went wrong? What if I died?" He pressed his face close to hers. "How could I bear to leave you behind?" She chuckled softly, her forehead resting on his shoulder in happiness. He was moved, suddenly thinking that she would soon be his wife. This girl would forever be his. This thought made him feel strangely excited. "Serafina, in a few months, give birth to my child." She hugged his neck, her cheeks flushed, and she pouted. "You want to trick me into such a ridiculous proposal?" He smiled. She pinched him and said, "I agreed so easily, so what can I do? You have to organize the most beautiful wedding to make it up to me." "Okay." He answered cheerfully and decisively.